Have you ever looked out at your beautiful green lawn, or maybe a field of crops, and just watched it start to die for no reason at all? It's so frustrating, right? But a lot of the time, the real problem isn't a disease, and it's not a lack of water. Nope, the enemy is working silently right under the soil. So today, we're going to peel back the turf and get a good look at this hidden pest. So you see something like this? A patch of grass that was perfectly fine last week is now all brown and wilted. It feels kind of spongy when you walk on it, and you can literally pull the dead grass right up from the soil, almost like a loose piece of carpet. That is a huge red flag that something is cutting off the lifeblood of your lawn right at the roots.
So what is this invisible force that's causing all this destruction? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out. We're going to expose one of the most widespread and damaging pests that you might never, ever see.
All right, let's start by getting a proper ID on our suspect. We are talking about the white grub, a creature that does all of its dirty work in secret, just inches beneath our feet. Okay, first things first, a white grub is not a worm. It's actually the larva, the baby stage of a scarab beetle. You'll recognize it by its soft, squishy, creamy white body and its little brown head. But the dead giveaway is its habit of curling up into the shape of a letter C the second you bother it. And that C shape, that's your number one sign that you've found a white grub. They do have 3 pairs of legs up near the head, but honestly, they're not great walkers. They were born to live and eat in the soil.
And here it is, the transformation that connects all the dots. This little grub on the left, it eventually turns into the familiar May or June beetle on the right. You know, the one that clumsily bumps into your screen door on a summer night. Realizing that that beetle is the adult version of the grub in your lawn, that's the key to understanding this whole problem.
But of course, it gets a little more complicated. Not all white grubs are the same. You can basically sort them into 2 main groups based on how long they live. You've got your true white grubs, which are like long-term squatters. They can take up to 3 years to grow up. Then you have annual white grubs, like the ones that become Japanese beetles. They're just passing through, doing their whole life cycle in just 1 year. And trust me, that difference in timing is absolutely critical for controlling them. So how on earth do the experts tell one of these little C-shaped guys from another? I mean, sure, you could wait for the beetle to show up, but there's a much cooler, more direct way. And believe it or not, the secret is on their butt. Check this out. This diagram shows what's called the raster. It's a specific pattern of hairs on the grub's last little segment. Now, it looks complicated, but here's the part you need to know to spot the really damaging multi-year grub. You look for 2 parallel rows of hairs that almost look like a zipper. It's like a tiny biological barcode that tells an entomologist exactly what they're dealing with. Pretty cool, right? Now that we know who they are, let's dive into the life cycle of that super persistent type, the true white grub. Because understanding this hidden timeline, well, it's everything when it comes to stopping them. That's right. It can take 3 full years for one of these grubs to go from a tiny egg to an adult beetle. That is 3 years of potential damage, and for 2 of those years, it's actively chewing away at the roots of your plants.
So let's break this down. In year 1, the eggs hatch, the little grubs start feeding. The damage is pretty minimal, you probably won't even notice it. But year 2, that is the danger zone. The grubs are way bigger, they're way hungrier, and they are just munching on roots all season long. This is when you see those big dead patches show up. Then, finally, in year 3, they eat a little in the spring, then go deep into the soil to transform into adults, getting ready to start the whole cycle over again. So we know when they do the most damage, but let's get a closer look at exactly how they do it. How does this tiny insect cause so much chaos? So up on the surface, you'll see all the classic signs of trouble. Wilting plants, brown patches that keep getting bigger, and that weird spongy feel under your feet. Oh, and if you start seeing a lot of birds or even skunks digging up your lawn, that is a major clue that they're hunting for a grub buffet. See, what the grubs are doing down there is using their strong little jaws to literally chew off the root hairs and small roots. They're cutting the plant's lifelines. Without those roots, the plant can't get any water or nutrients from the soil, so it basically starves and dies of thirst no matter how much you water it. And listen, this isn't some new problem. As this quote from way back in 1977 shows, we've been fighting this pest for a very long time. From massive agricultural losses in corn and soybean fields to homeowners having to replace their entire lawns, their economic impact is huge, and it has been for decades. So the big question, what can be done? Well, the best defense is a smart, integrated offense. There's no single silver bullet here, but if you combine a few methods, you can really manage the problem effectively.
An integrated strategy basically means using a few different tools from the toolbox. You've got cultural controls, like tilling the soil to expose grubs to birds. These are great for the environment, but can take a lot of work. Then there are biological controls, which use nature's own weapons, like beneficial diseases. These are very targeted, but can be a bit slow to get going. And finally, you have chemical controls. These can be really effective and fast, but you have to be super careful with timing and think about the impact on other insects, like bees. But here's the single most important thing to remember. Timing is everything. No matter which method you choose, you have to act when the grubs are in their first year, when they're small, vulnerable, and feeding right near the surface. Trying to get rid of huge second-year grubs is way harder, way more expensive, and just not as effective. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, both literally and figuratively. So let's boil this all down to the absolute most important things to remember. It really just comes down to these 3 steps. First, identify the problem correctly. Don't just assume it's a watering issue. Dig up a small patch and look for those C-shaped grubs. Second, understand their life cycle so you know when that real danger period, year 2, is coming. And third, act strategically. Use a mix of methods and most of all, time your attack for when they are young and weak. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. These beetles, they're native insects, right? They're a natural part of the ecosystem. They really only become a pest when their populations get out of control. So maybe the next time you see a dead patch on the lawn, don't just reach for a bag of fertilizer. Take a closer look. You might find the real story is happening just beneath the surface.